Let me introduce the next speaker. It's a pleasure to introduce Dr. Matt Collinge. Right? And Matt is the Deputy Director for the Maryland Space Grant Consortium. He's going to talk, I think, at length about Maryland, about Space Grant in general. Okay.
Extreme length.
Good. So I'm not going to mention anything other than Maryland Space Grant is based at Johns Hopkins University in Maryland. And through Maryland Space Grant, we have been able to get Prince George's County, Anne Arundel County, Charles County, Montgomery County, the University of Maryland. I'm sure I'm missing somebody aboard this program because Maryland Space Grant provided absolutely essential funding support. So through Maryland Space Grant, I would say that there's likely about approaching 10,000 students that might have participated in this program because of Maryland Space Grant. That's remarkable. So with that, it's a pleasure working with you in Maryland Space Grant, and I'm turning this over to you, Nick.
Thank you very much. Hello, can you hear me okay? If I stand like this, not too quiet, not too loud, a little closer? Let's see. Well, I can lean forward a little bit. That good? Okay. Well, I want to start by thanking Dr. Goldstein for the invitation to come here and speak to you today. And thank you also for being here and for giving me your attention for the next 15 or 20 minutes. And congratulations for being here. Congratulations to the SSEP finalists. Congratulations to the SSEP communities. It's really a fantastic thing to be a part of and a great accomplishment to be here today. So I hope you take that to heart. So I'm here to congratulate you, not just from me, not just from Maryland Space Grant, which I represent, but from the National Space Grant community as a whole. And so what's that? Well, don't worry, I'm going to tell you. So first, allow me to introduce myself a little bit more. So I'm Matt Collinge. I work for Maryland Space Grant Consortium, which is based at Johns Hopkins University. Anyway, so technically I work for Maryland Space Grant, but Maryland is just one of many, many space grants across the nation. We're part of the we think of ourselves as the National Space Grant Community. You probably can't see it from the scale of that little badge on the upper right there, but this is actually our 30th anniversary this year of the National Space Grant Program, so it's a big milestone for us. And what does the Space Grant Program do? Well, we work in support of NASA. We promote NASA's missions, we promote NASA's accomplishments, we try to engage public interest, and most of all, most importantly, and probably most relevantly for you, we are working to recruit a steady stream of new talent to take NASA to new heights. So I'm looking at you as I'm saying this, and it's not, I mean every word of it. So let's move on here. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to say to you today, I was looking for a theme that I could use to tie together a couple of different topics that seemed apropos, and so I chose opportunity. So why did I choose that word? Why did I choose opportunity? Well, I mean, look at it. Okay, it's a beautiful word. It's a positive word, it's a great word, it's a nonpartisan word, it's optimistic, everybody loves it. It has 11 letters, it starts with the letter O. I mean, can't get any better than that. So, I mean, the real reason actually, of course, is that I think it means something. I think it's going to be relevant to you, I think it's an important idea, I think it's going to be something that we're going to be able to make tangible to you as young people with much of your future ahead of you. So, here's how I'm going to proceed to try to address this theme. I'm going to start with a little story, personal anecdote, also known as how I became an astrophysicist. Then I'm going to exercise my my holy prerogative as an astrophysicist to tell you some things about astrophysics. And then I'm going to tell you more about Space Grant and why you might want to pay attention if you hear the word Space Grant at some point in the future. And hopefully, by the time we get through all that, I'll bring it all together and leave you with a coherent message that'll stay with you after this talk. Okay. So, my story. Well, I'm from Pennsylvania originally. I'm proud to hail from Penn State University, and so now this story, we're harking back into the dim recesses of memory and the depths of time to the days when I was a young student there. So I was a second-year student at Penn State at the time this story happens. I was studying physics. I was taking my first astronomy class of my life. I was young. I was very naive. I'd always been interested in the universe, but this was the first time, I loved science fiction. This was the first time I ever thought about it seriously, the first time I ever started to think about how physics actually describes the laws of the universe, how the physics that we know from terrestrial reality also governs the stars and the planets and all the other processes that occur out there in the universe, and how we are able to know things like that, which is a very fundamental aspect of astronomy. So anyway, I was enjoying the class, but one day my professor says, hey, can you stay after class for a few minutes? And then when I did, he says, have you thought about joining a research group? Have you thought about starting research? And I was like, no. I was busy. I had a very full schedule as a student. I was thinking that the thing that a student does is study and take classes, and that's what it means to be a student. That's what I was concentrating on. So this was a new concept. I had no background to draw on, and so I said no. But it just so happened that I wanted this professor to think well of me. He was a nice guy. I had a great deal of respect for him. So I lied then, and I said, but I'm interested to find out more. And I'm here today because I told that lie. Because what happened is he introduced me to another young faculty member in the department. We started a research project together, and before you knew it, it was, forget classes, I'm still taking classes, but it was research that became the emphasis of my education and really the essence of my college career. And that carried me on into, good heavens, I forgot to bring up here you go, reminders of the things that I've just told you. That carried me on into graduate school. And here I'm going to show you something I did in graduate school. So you might, when you think of astrophysics or astronomy research, you might be picturing like a lovely image of a galaxy or something like that. But the truth is, research really looks a lot more like that. Just a pretty scatter plot over there. Now research eventually led, as it does for many other people, into teaching, and teaching eventually led me to where I am now, working for Space Grant. And by the way, this is an awesome job to have, so I'm going to tell you more about that. But not before I exercise my prerogative as an astrophysicist and I show you a cool astronomy photo, which maybe you recognize. Hopefully you can all see it well. This is a very famous image. Look, that's a galaxy in the image right there. That's another galaxy in the image. That's another galaxy. Hey, guess what? Everything in this image is a galaxy, pretty much, with the exception of just a handful of stars. And so this is just a dark part of the sky that the Hubble Space Telescope stared at for quite a long period of time, doing essentially one of the things that Hubble does best. And I don't know about you, but I can stare at this thing all day without getting bored. There's so much to see in that. So I thought for the rest of my talk, we could all just sit and look at this image together. Actually not. Instead, I'm going to play my astrophysicist card now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you some astrophysics facts, some of which you probably already know, some you might not know, but all of which are amazing. Okay, so these are the amazing astrophysics facts. Number one, Earth and the Sun are 4.6 billion years old. That blew people's minds when they figured that out. We are stardust. We, all life, all the material in this room, everything we touch, are made of pieces of exploded stars. But don't worry, because our star, the sun, is going to shine steadily for another 5 billion years. By the way, I said billion. Billions of other planetary systems exist. We know this now. Billions. The universe is billions of years old, 13.8 billion to be precise, and we know that too. You know what else about the universe? It's flat. What does that even mean? It's true. I'm not going to take the time to explain it right now. I'm going to come back to this point. The physics that we know can explain most of what we see in the universe, which is a really amazing thing. For example, the early universe was hot and dense, and we can see that today. But it doesn't explain everything that we see. There are some things that we don't understand. There's something called dark matter, which is out there, which dominates the matter in the universe, outweighing regular matter 5 to 1. The universe is expanding, you probably know, and that actually makes sense, but the expansion is accelerating, which makes no sense. If we look back deep enough, we can see evidence that there was a beginning to it all. There was something called a Big Bang. And along the way here, we've touched on a few topics that really are not fully understood, and there's really a great deal that we still don't know about the universe, despite all the things that I might be able to list if I were to try to make a larger version of this slide. And I think that's an opportunity when you are confronted with something like that. So I hope you'll see it the same way. Now, I promised that I would talk to you about Space Grant. So what is that? Well, as I told you, we're a nationwide organization. We work for NASA, we work with NASA, basically a nationwide STEM program, NASA-oriented, with a mission, which is to inspire and engage new students and new researchers, and to help with the mission of exploring our universe. Now, one of the ways that we do this is that we provide scholarship support, financial scholarship support, and other financial support. Ooh, watch out for the reflection. Okay, maybe I won't use this. Over 6,000 college students a year get some form of support for us, whether it's a scholarship, whether it's a paid internship working at a private company, or doing research on campus, or working at a NASA center. In addition to that type of support, we also like to sponsor student groups that want to take part in competitions. And one of the types of projects that we really like to organize are what I'm going to call payload projects, which I'm going to tell you more about, which you might imagine in the present context involves building things and launching them. And there's all kinds of fun that you can have with that, as you know. Now, even if you might not have heard of Space Grant before until Dr. Goldstein introduced me, we are very widespread. We're a nationwide organization. There's a space grant in every single state of the United States. In fact, there are 52 consortia in all, once you add on Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. Now, in the present context, it makes sense to me to say that one of the things that I think the National Space Grant community is very proud of is the important role it's played as a partner for the Student Spaceflight Experiments Program over the years. So if you look at my statistics over there, out of those 52 different space grant consortia, 33 of them have provided some level of support to the Student Spaceflight Experiments Program, and that sponsorship has assisted 130 out of the 271 SSEP communities to date. So we're quite proud of that. And in fact, 14 of those communities were through Maryland, and I'm personally very proud of that. Now, another thing is, so why are you here today? Why are we here? There's something a common interest that we share, I hope, and that has to do something with space, whether we might be interested in different aspects of it. Now, the fact that you're here and that you're interested in space, that's something that Space Grant is very interested in. We are interested in you. We want you. We want to help you. We want you to benefit from what we can offer. We want you to contribute, find a way to contribute to the nation's space program and NASA's accomplishments. And we want you to, most of all, just do great things. We want you to excel, whatever it is that you end up doing, because we believe that we'll all reap the benefits of that excellence. And we want to help you get there if we can. Now, so I like to think of Space Grant as a little bit like Dumbledore. Okay, so Dumbledore. I mean, this is very pretentious, I know, but one of the things about Dumbledore is he's kind of humble at times, and he has this this line that he gets to utter a few times about help being made available at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. Okay, and so I think Space Grant is a little bit like that. We're out there everywhere, and you might not have seen us yet, but if you need help, if you want some help furthering your education in the direction of STEM or space science or NASA, or you want to get involved with something new in those directions, all you have to do is look up your Space Grant and just give them a call and see what they can offer you, see how they can help you. Now here's an illustration of just a couple of noteworthy accomplishments, programs that are organized or managed by Space Grants around the country. Certainly not going to get into the nuts and bolts of all these, but I'm just going to point out a few things. Okay, so maybe you can read the name of that first one there. It's BLAST. Okay, that actually doesn't have to do with blowing things up. It stands for Building Leaders for Advancing Science and Technology. It's a 3-day residential program for 8th and 9th grade students here in the state of Virginia. And in fact, quite a few of the items that I'm showing you on that screen are run by the Space Grant that's in Virginia, which is one of the really standout, excellent organizations throughout the country. And so I want to give a big shout out to them. I don't know if any of them are hearing me right now. Now, rather than get into the nuts and bolts of all of these programs and tell you which ones, try to sell each one to you individually, I'm just going to highlight a couple that I'm relatively familiar with. But first, let me just point out, so we got BLAST. We have something called Cubes in Space. We have, look, a picture of a rocket over there. That's First Nations launch. We have something called RockSat. We have the Midwest High Power Rocketry Competition. We have something called Liftoff. Noticing a common theme here? So let me tell you a little bit about a couple of these. So these three that I'm going to highlight. So over there on the left is something called HASP. Now that's run by the Space Grant that's in Louisiana. And what it is it's a big balloon. So it's a balloon that carries up a heavy payload and then lingers at altitude for a long time, for hours. And it's kind of a heavy lift vehicle when it comes to student launches. It can carry thousands of pounds. So you can fly a pretty big experiment. You can have it up there at 115,000 feet, which is basically the edge of space. You know, the sky is dark up there. There's radiation. You're exposed to very space-like conditions in terms of pressure and temperature. And you can have it sit up there for hours and test materials, or test electronics, or make measurements, astronomy measurements, or earth science measurements. And these are student-designed and student-built experiment payloads that are competitively selected, but we get to go up on this HASP platform, and they're from all around the country, usually sponsored by the space grant in the state that that program is from. Now the second one there, liftoff, actually nothing to do with launching things, except metaphorically. That's run out of Texas, and that one is for teachers. So this is a program that brings teachers down for a week-long workshop and exposes them to all kinds of exciting space-related topics in hope of instilling them desire to take that back with them and use it to enrich the experience of their students. And then over there on the right, we have something called RockSet, which I mentioned before, and which I'm going to tell you more about. That is organized primarily by the Space Grant in Colorado, but with some support from the standout Space Grant here in Virginia. And those are rockets, sounding rockets, student experiments flying on sounding rockets. I'm going to tell you more about that. Now, I'd be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to at least talk a little bit about some of the specific things that our organization is working on and is proud of. So Maryland Space Grant Consortium, what are we all about? Well, one of the things that we're very proud of is our long relationship with the Student Spaceflight Experiments Program. We've sponsored 14 communities and counting from all the way back in 2011 until the present, which I believe is the second highest total of any state in the nation after the state of Texas, somewhere like that. Very proud of that. Near and dear to my heart as an astrophysicist is that we own and operate an observatory open to the public, used for educational purposes in Baltimore, Maryland, where Johns Hopkins is located. Now, for those of you that are not amateur astronomers already, by the way, anyone who's in town, come pay us a visit at some point. But for those of you that are not already amateur astronomers, it might not make sense to think in terms of doing astronomy from an urban environment like that. But the truth is that when it comes to visual astronomy, looking at the pretty sights in the sky, you know, the planets and the craters of the moon, some of the brighter nebulas, you can do it. They're bright enough. They stand out above the background, and with a good enough telescope, they're just as clear as day. You don't even really need a very big telescope at all. And so you can really experience the wonder that comes with seeing the craters of the moon up close, or with your naked eye, not in an image, or you know the planet Jupiter and its atmospheric bands and its Galilean moons. I mean, these are really, for some people, for me anyway, and maybe for you, these are really powerful experiences to have, and so we're really happy to be able to have that experience available in the city of Baltimore. Another thing we're extremely proud of is our very, very excellent student researchers that we sponsor every summer. I told you that research played an important part in my trajectory, and I think that for some of these people it's also equally significant. So that's a group that we had together last summer. And then finally, if I didn't tell you something about launching something, you wouldn't believe me probably. So what we like to launch, we specialize in low cost, low barrier to entry programs that use smaller weather balloons to launch smaller payloads. Now, I say smaller, but not small. So if you can see that image at the bottom right, you can get a sense of the scale of that balloon compared to the people that are standing around underneath it. It's about the size of a car. It can carry a few kilograms up to a similar altitude to what I was telling you before, about 100,000 feet. It's pretty much the edge of space. Then guess what happens? The balloon pops and everything comes falling down. But you put a parachute on it so that it doesn't kill anyone when it lands, and you go and recover it, and you get the data out of your instruments, and you do something with it. And we've been running that program for a long time. It's based at College Park, and so fear the turtle. All right. Now, the other thing I said I was going to say more about this, because this is something we're also really into, and that's the sounding rockets. So this program, which I told you is organized by the Colorado and Virginia Space Grant organizations, just like those other ones, it's made available to everyone nationwide. So we've sent people to participate in all these programs I'm telling you about every year. So this one happens in Wallops, Virginia, a NASA facility. Now that's and it's a week long. It's every year in June. Now that's technically in Virginia, but that part of Virginia we like to think of as part of Maryland, actually. So really, this is our backyard, and so we're always sending students here, and this is a great experience. So basically, in the space of a week, you come, you learn how to do some electronics and basic programming. You put together a payload, you launch it on a sounding rocket, and you get it back, and you get the data, and it's amazing. And so that photo at the bottom shows one or 2 years ago, the cohort of students who did this immediately after they launched their rocket. I mean, look how thrilled they are. Look how satisfied they look. Wouldn't you like to be there? Wouldn't you like to be one of those? Well, if you would, go and talk to your local space grant, because this is an opportunity that's out there every year. Okay, now bringing it back to the national picture. I told you that we've been working in support of NASA for almost 30 years now. Making opportunities like the ones that I was just talking about available to as many students as we can, and also, by the way, connecting students to NASA projects. So there over on the right is an image of something called Dragonfly. Maybe you've heard of this. There was a recent announcement by NASA that this mission has been selected to fly to Titan, the moon of Saturn, launching in 2026 or something. Is that what I put on there? Yeah, that sounds about right. And what's this going to do? Well, it's going to send an exploratory vehicle to go and land on the surface of the moon Titan, and not just stay in one place, but actually fly around from site to site and do a real significant exploration and mapping of that surface of that moon, which, by the way, is one of the most interesting bodies in the solar system when it comes to organic chemistry and maybe understanding the precursors of the origin of life. It's kind of like a Mars rover, where the rovers go to Mars and kind of explore, and that's really cool, except like 10 times cooler because it's flying and it's going to Titan. Okay, so now to recap, space grants like to launch things. So there's a picture of a balloon launching something, there's a picture of a rocket launching something, there's a picture of the International Space Station, as you know, something that payloads can also be sent to. Well, you might also know that there's a significant anniversary coming up here pretty soon, in a couple weeks, the July 20th, the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. Now, Space Grant's helping NASA celebrate that, but that's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because maybe on that date there might be an announcement, and it might have something to do with Space Grant. So you might want to stay tuned for that. Okay. So let me wrap it up here. So I'm gonna one final time I'm exercising my prerogative as an astronomer just to have cool astronomy images on my slide. No particular reason. By the way, you can never have too many astronomy images on your slide. Pro tip for all of you future presenters out there. Now, but I do want to bring this home back to the concept of opportunity that I started with. So let me just say right now, I told you a story about my career, but you do not have to have a career like that. You do not have to do the same things that I did or that any other particular person did. But there is something that I think you should do, and that is listen to the following, try to absorb the following. So in my experience, it's my opinion anyway, that like if you take a sample of really successful and influential and cool people, you'll find a common characteristic that they possess, and that is that when a good opportunity comes to them, they don't think to themselves like, oh, I'm too busy with the other stuff I'm doing, never mind. They take it. They make something out of it. They really do something with it. And so I want you to be like that. As you go further, as you advance in your studies, as you maybe move on to college or move on to your career beyond college, there are lots of challenges. Anybody who says differently is selling something. There could be adversity. Someone else told you, I think, already that persevering through adversity may be the most important characteristic for becoming successful eventually. But there are more mundane things, like things probably that you're experiencing already, like attention fatigue, like when there's too many things competing for your attention, or maybe just more and more complicated material in your studies, or the fact that you have increasing responsibilities or time commitments. And these are not bad things. It's life, but they are challenges. And so my message to you as curiosity-driven people, as future explorers, is that you owe it to yourself to keep the windows of your mind open. So my message is, I really think I urge you to stay open to opportunity when it comes, so that you can, when opportunity presents itself as a question, that your answer to that question can be yes. And not only to be open to opportunity, but to seek it out, because remember, go looking for it. Help will be given to those who ask for it, okay? So we're out there. Space Grant's out there, just one of many forces in this large and fascinating universe, but we're out there for you, we're interested in you, we want you to succeed. So come and give us a call sometime. Thanks.
Do we have any questions for that? Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I'm from Marco, and I was wondering, how do we find out, which space grant? You said talk to your local space grant. How do we find that out?
Good question. Yeah, I should have said, so we're a state-based program. So some of the space grants, as in the examples I gave, do operate national programs that anybody can apply to. although often you need to find local funding in order to attend the program, and that might come from the local space grant. So which is the local space grant? It's state-based. So if you're in Maryland, it's me. If you're in Virginia, it's the fine folks who are responsible for those many programs that I showed you. If you're in Hawaii, it's the Hawaii Space Grant. And unfortunately, if you're not in the United States, we're a little bit limited. We still want to reach you, but we can't. We don't have quite as many options.
Any further questions?
I don't think we mentioned this, but if they go to if they look up Space Grant on the web, there's a NASA webpage that lists the contact information and the directors for all of the 52 space grants.
Yeah, we're not.
So it's very easy to get contact information.
We're not hiding. We're out there. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and support for SSEP.